Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to go over how to use the trend function in Excel. Now this function can be useful if you want to forecast out where you think if you're trying to estimate where your sales might be over a future period. And so in this example, let's assume we've got a seasonal store where the weather can impact the sales that you make in a given month. So, January, February are the cooler months of the year. The sales are lower. As you get towards the summer, they spike and are higher because of the warmer weather. So to use the trend function, we can extrapolate from this data to project out where we expect the future sales will be. So using the trend function, you'll see there's multiple arguments here. We've got known y's, known x's, new x's, and a constant. I'll go over all these, but the main ones that you need to make this formula work are the known y's. These are the dependent values. So in this case, it's going to be sales. And then we've got the known x's. So these are the independent variables. So this is the monthly weather, because obviously weather is not impacted by sales. Weather is independent of all that. And so that goes as the known x's. So this is all you really need to make this function work and for it to generate a forecast for you. You just need x's and y's. The main thing to make sure is that they line up correctly to one another. You don't want these the sales to be in the wrong row, and you've got January and February data mixed up, let's say. So the key thing is just to make sure they're aligned properly and you've got the same number of values on each side. So I could just hit enter now and it's going to spit out a forecast for me. So I'm going to move this one to the side just because I want to show you another way to do this as well. And so if I put dollar signs here, you can see that it's not a one-for-one comparison. Like we've got 300 here, so it's got 296, got 320, it's got 318. So it does a linear regression analysis, so it saves you the time from having to do that and make that calculation. And it also doesn't just mirror exactly what you've entered in here. Now the downside of doing it this way is now you haven't given Excel any additional information, right? You can still project out what you think the weather might be. You've got a report maybe of what you expect the temperatures to be. And so I'm going to show you how we can do that, how we can potentially factor that in and make a hopefully a better forecast. So I'm going to copy these months over. And let's say we expect the temperature to increase by about 15% next year. So I'll take these values, multiply them by 1.15, and I'll copy this down. I'll just copy the formatting as well. And so now we've got temperature in there. So now we've got those new x values. So I'm going to open up the trend function again. And this time I'm still selecting the same known y's, the same known x's, but this time I've got those new x values that I've entered in. So these are the projections that I expect for the next 12 months. And so because I'm giving Excel more information, it's going to give me a different forecast, hopefully a more accurate one. So now if I hit enter, now we've got some variability here, right? So we saw here the temperature is 45. Here we're expecting to jump to 51.75. And so the sales are now 346 instead of 296 under this one where we did not give that information. So Excel, assume that it's going to follow the same pattern, the same sort of temperature. So the sales would be roughly similar. But in this case, because we're expecting a spike in the temperature, the sales are also higher as well. Here you can see even during the warmer months, we've got 642 instead of 554, 625 over 539. So that it tells us that it's working. The forecast is working properly because with an increase in temperature, we would also expect to see an increase in sales. So the trend function is working as expected in that regard. Now another thing you may want to also do is consider using a constant. So in this example so far, I've left the constant blank. So there's an option to set it to false or to true. So this b value is, if you remember the formula, y equals mx plus b. So if you have that b, that intercept value as 0, then it's going to change that equation. So if I set it to 0, I have no intercept at all. It's going to give me a different set of values than if I set this to true. And if I set it to true, I just set this to a value of 1. And you can see it's slightly different. And this really depends on, your data set. If there's a minimum number of sales that you expect over the course of a month, regardless of, let's say, the weather conditions, or if you've got a situation where your data could be very volatile and there really isn't a fixed amount, or there isn't a constant that would be appropriate in that forecast, then you can set it to false. But ultimately, it's going to just depend on your specific situation. So you may just want to try it both ways to see what forecast works better for you. I don't know. It's going to always be better or worse in one situation or another. So that's something that you'll probably want to test out on your own to see how it works. Now, one other thing you may want to consider when you're creating a forecast is putting your forecasted amounts in a separate column. So right now I've got sales here. But suppose I change this to actuals, and let's say this is forecast. So I'm going to delete this other forecast. I'm going to copy this one over here, and to say these are forecasted amounts. Now the benefit of breaking it out like this is over time, I can enter in the actuals, and it's easy to compare side by side to see what the actuals were, what the forecast was, what kind of a variance it was, how close you were versus your forecast. Another thing you can do is chart this out to show the actuals and where the forecast starts. So the one thing I'm going to do before I do that is copy this value here over to the forecast, just because I want to create a line chart that has a continuation. And so what I'm going to do is insert. Just a simple line chart will do. And as you can see, we've got that a different series. So we've got the forecast as the gray, the actuals being orange. So if I right click, select data, what I'm going to do is remove the average weather. I don't want that. So now I've got the two charts. And the reason I've got this 320 overlap here is if I get rid of that, it kind of has that discontinuation there. So to make it all connected, that's why I leave it in there, just to have that effect. And now what you could do, what I always like to do when it comes to forecasts is, if we format this data series, if we go on the line, we can select a dash type, so we can show it as a dash, just to show that, okay, this is a forecasted amount. This is not the actual. So what can be helpful is, let's say, use a solid line. Let's say just a black color for this one, and the same color can be used for this one if you prefer. But by using that dash, you've got a way to show the reader, the user, that these are expected amounts, right? And as they become actuals, you can maybe potentially move them over to a solid amount, or you could have a different color for your forecast altogether. Those are just some ways that you can compare and contrast your actuals versus your forecasted amounts. But as you can see, the trend function can be really helpful here. It takes out some of the potential guesswork for you, saving you having to do a regression analysis or computation. I mean, obviously you could do your own forecast and use Excel's forecast as well, just to see which one's better. But really, you're just using the trend function to specify your known Y's. So these are the values that are going to change based on the X values. And the X values are your independent variables. So these are the things that are not going to be impacted. So it's you kind of have to consider which one depends on the other. In this situation, we're saying the sales dollars depend on the monthly temperature, because if it's a warm temperature, then those values, those sales dollars will go up, versus in colder months, sales will decline. So because we've got that relationship going, then it's the monthly average temperature that will be the independent variable, the X, dictating the potential sales dollars, and that will make the sales being the Y variable, the dependent one. So hope that's clear, and hope you found this video useful. Use the trend function, and hopefully it can save you a whole lot of time when doing your forecasts. Thanks for watching.